In this video, we'll be showing you how to connect links across your site, and this will not include links in the nav bar. We have a separate video regarding navigation links, so do check that out if you're interested in figuring out how to link those. In this video, we'll be covering how do we link from a search page to a specific listing or user profile, as well as how do we connect the call to action buttons on the product details page to initiate the checkout flow, to start booking or purchasing something, as well as connecting a chat button if you want to chat with the owner or seller of a certain listing if you have questions as a customer. In another additional video, we will be covering how to link up the favorites feature in Tangram, but it won't be covered in this video. So if we have a listing on a search page like the template we're currently looking at, you can imagine a bunch of products here or services listed with an image, maybe a title. How can we make it such that we click on the specific listing tile and link it to that listing on the live site? So within the TG import type listing div, which has generally a Tangram attribute, TG import type equals listing, within that we need to add a link block element from Webflow. So we go to the element section of Webflow, drag in a link block, and you want to make sure that link block is inside of TG import type equals listing so that we can access Tangram data about that listing, like the ID that we need to pass in the URL to direct that listing. And please note that you can't nest link blocks. So if we have the favorite link, it'll have to be at the same level as the outer link itself, like this. And on the link block, we maybe will give it an appropriate name like listing link. And to make sure we direct it to the right place, we have to pass a listing ID to make sure that we're viewing that specific listing. And the structure of the link will be your subdomain, Tangram subdomain, which might be like your company.tangram.co, or if you connected the custom domain, it'll be that. Make sure you have HTTPS in front of it, / listings, plural, / curly brace, listing _ ID, and this is us passing the listing ID param in there, and that will be it. It's just / listing / listing ID inside of curly braces, and to allow us to access that listing ID and pass it as a parameter, we have to add a Tangram attribute, TG attribute value link. So that lets us link the specific listing or user in the URL. So that will be the path if you want to view a listing. It'll be your subdomain / listing / curly brace listing _ ID. And you can do that all throughout the platform as long as it's directly inside of TG import type equals listing. Then we can access that listing ID if we have TG attribute equals link attached to the link parameter or the link element. It could be a button or a link element where we want to send it to that URL. Now, how do you do it on a user search page? Let's pretend, hypothetically, this is a user profile on a directory instead of a listing. This would be TG import type equals user instead of listing. It should be named accordingly in your marketplace, and the link, you would probably name it something like a user link instead of a listing link, and the path you would send it to, and once again, we're hypothetically, if we want to send to the current user profile, not listing, it would be /users / user _ ID, and that would take us to the user profile if this were a user directory instead of a listing directory. Now let's explore the product details pages and how to hook up chat buttons there or the call to action to book or purchase something. So under the details pages template, I will use the service details page as a hypothetical example. So if we wanted to connect to this book now and check availability button, and you can change the text to whatever you want, it'll be the same like checkout URL that you would send it to, no matter whether the listing is a service or a product. You would pass TG attribute link to pass the ID of the current product or listing, and the route would be HTTPS, your subdomain, so let's say like company.tangram.co / listings / curly brace listing _ ID to pass the ID in the URL / new underscore transaction. And this will initiate the customer to be redirected to the Tangram checkout flow based on the settings defined on your platform. And this will be the same link that you would copy and paste on all of the details pages for whatever listing types you have that have a unique design for the details pages. It'll be /listings /listing ID with curly braces around it /new underscore transaction. And we have to have TG attribute equals link whenever we pass a parameter in a curly brace like the listing ID or user ID. If we wanted to add a chat button to contact the seller or provider, we would do TG attribute link on the link element, and the route would be it would be the subdomain /users /user underscore ID /new underscore chat if we want to initiate a new chat with the user. Please keep in mind that if we are passing a user ID, it has to be whatever element has that attached to it, that URL with the user ID attached to it, has to be inside of a TG import type equals user container in order to access that user data. Similarly, if you're pulling in seller data on the product details page, all of this here would need to be inside of a TG import type equals user container to access things like the provider's name, when they were created, their description, etc. Very similarly, on the profile page of a seller, you can connect their contact button using the same link. It would be the subdomain /users /user underscore ID /new underscore chat, same as the link we just covered. And the attribute to pass the parameter would be TG attribute. If you notice things in your project that said like TG user value, TG listing value, that's a deprecated way of connecting this link to pass the link of the parameter as a parameter in the URL. It may still work, but you don't need to use that attribute anymore. You can just use TG attribute for everything, so it's nice and clean.